Once you make it to the top, there's nowhere to go except down. That's a fact. There's no way of disputing it that. You're not going to sit at the top forever. Eventually, life's going to take you down. That's part of life. Joe Rogan and Liver King recently had a falling out. Two guys that never met each other, never shook hands, never shared the same anything. They just know each other from online. That's as close as they ever got. They knew about each other. They heard about each other through this thing we call the internet or social media. Joe Rogan started the trouble. He mentioned Liver King on his podcast. And I want to talk about that. When you're out there, you have to keep on pushing out new media, new things for people to talk about, touchy subjects. Sometimes you hit a subject you don't want to talk about. And it's for good reason, because you might put yourself in danger. And that's exactly what happened in this scenario. Joe didn't know it. Joe didn't know what was going to happen. But Joe just opened his mouth. He did what he's good at, which is podcasting, talking, adding a sense of genius to what he says. Everybody loves to hear what Joe Rogan says, because Joe Rogan's a smart guy. He's just the guy you want to listen to. Joe said that the Liver King was roided up. Liver King eventually mans up to it. There's some other things that transpire, but let's just keep it between Joe and the Liver King. He breaks down and he admits that his diet isn't the thing that made him look like bearded Hulk with chains around his neck. He just became really popular, and a lot of it had to do with his look, who he is too. He went out there and did that. But let's bring it back to the beginning. Joe Rogan says you can't have a physique like that unless you're on something. Joe is, in my opinion, basically a nutritionalist. He knows a lot about keeping his body in tip-top shape. Joe Rogan doesn't look like Liver King. Joe Rogan actually, he takes his shirt off, he looks pretty jacked up. He doesn't look like Liver King. There's a difference. From there, Liver King lost a lot of fans, got a lot of hate. A lot of people went against him. And it's all because they found that he lied to them. Sometimes in life, people lie. It's part of life. But when you go on social media and everybody finds out that you did it, that's going to be their big memory. If you do something negative, they remember that. Joe Rogan started it. Liver King had to live it. We don't know what happened in his life. We don't know how he's feeling, but we know what happened. He went to Dallas, Texas. According to the police, he made terroristic threats. I could be wrong, but what I think happened is that Joe Rogan called the cops. They heard Joe Rogan calling the cops. The police listened. They checked out the story. They found the Liver King at a hotel. That's where he was. You could see it in the videos. It was pretty obvious. And they decided to arrest him for a misdemeanor. I don't know Brian Johnson's criminal history. If anybody knows, please put it in the comments. That'll help me find out. But I do know that he was given one misdemeanor. He didn't resist arrest. He didn't make it any worse for himself. And if you remember about his diet and all that, his controversial diet, which was a bunch of baloney, that the Liver King was honest. And when he lied and he got caught, he admitted it. When the police decided to arrest him, he decided to go with them. He didn't put up a fight. There is a good part of the personality of Liver King that we can see. You know, he's a man. He doesn't cry, he doesn't whine. If he's guilty, he takes the punishment. And I want to commend him for that. I know people are only going to remember that he lied about his diet and keep on hounding him for that. But people make mistakes. You know, life, people aren't perfect in life. There's always going to be those mistakes that we make. We're not perfect. And we weren't made to be perfect. Back to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has a difficult job of constantly pushing out new content. And there's content that some people shouldn't touch. And I want to say what it is. If you think you're going to ruin somebody's life over making a comment, and if you're as big as Joe Rogan and you have that much pull, that many fans, and you know, you've sat there with President Trump doing podcasts, then I wouldn't do it. I don't think Joe Rogan is the type of guy that goes out there and is malicious and intentionally tries to ruin anyone's life. I think that Joe Rogan just speaks his mind. And he didn't really understand what this was going to do to Brian Johnson's life. Now, I want to put this out there. This is my opinion. Joe Rogan got scared. because he saw something else in Liver King. He saw something else in his soul. And Liver King said that he wanted to fight him. He did say another comment that I don't want to repeat against Joe Rogan, which is maybe why he got arrested. He did say he wanted to fight him. I don't really know if saying you want to fight somebody is enough, especially when Joe Rogan's in the business of selling fights and talking about fights all day. So maybe it was the other comment that he made. If anyone knows exactly what got him arrested, please let me know. But he did get arrested. He did post bail. He got out on a $20,000 bond. The only danger is that they up the charges on Liver King. I don't think they will. But then again, I'm not the government or the police. Let's look at what's happening now. Liver King's life took a downturn. Joe Rogan made money off of it. Not much, but he made a few bucks off that YouTube video, that podcast. I think it had around 8 million views. Joe Rogan kept his popularity. Liver King went down, and Liver King wanted to challenge Joe Rogan. Now, should Joe Rogan take Liver King up on that challenge? Or is he happy with Liver King being arrested? If it was me, I would tell Liver King, if he apologizes, if he makes a video apologizing for what he did, then I'll drop the charges. Because if I already put damage on somebody's life and then I got them arrested and I knew they were angry at me for all of it, I would realize that I couldn't mess with this guy anymore. That it's time for me to apologize too. And after Liver King apologized and I dropped the charges, I would apologize to Liver King for saying what I said to him and really try to put it behind him. Because men, they could put things behind each other if they have mutual respect. There's some guys out there that will never put anything behind them, and they have no mutual respect. They have no respect for anybody. But judging from the character of Liver King and how he acted when he got arrested and how he acted when he apologized, I think that these two guys should tie the knot and get along. And at least just go their separate ways. They'll probably never get along. But maybe one day, in a real long time, when they're older, if they're still both walking this earth, they can forgive each other. That'd be the hope. Another thing I wanted to bring up is, do you guys think they should actually fight? Do you guys think they should get their aggression out that way? And that way, there could be a lot of money behind it. I would be really excited about it. I think a lot of people would tune in. And I think Joe Rogan would really get to test his fan base to see how much money he can make off of a fight. Something that he's been selling his entire life. Fights to the public. Joe Rogan never fought. That's the thing that I think is interesting. Liver King never fought either, but Joe Rogan, he was right in there. Everybody wanted to see him fight for so long. He never gave that to us, and I know why. Joe Rogan knew that he had too much to lose. You know, if he lost a fight, people wouldn't think he was worth listening to anymore. They would tune him out. And that's why he never did it. It's just bad for the brand that he became. He wanted to keep his brand going, and a fight potentially could destroy that. But now, Joe Rogan's really big. I don't think anything could destroy Joe Rogan right now, except for some really bad news. And like I said in the beginning, when you get up to the top, there's nowhere to go but down. And I think Joe Rogan wants to keep that from happening for as long as possible. Because one day it is going to happen. One day people are just not going to tune in anymore. He's going to look too old, or maybe some bad news comes out about him. He gets a domestic violence charge. His confidence is shot, and he changes. Joe Rogan is at the top. He met the president, and that's the thing about this, that Joe Rogan at the top called out Liver King and started this whole seed of destruction in his life. And I think the most important thing to say here is you can't do that, because it's karma. Eventually, it's going to come back to you. So I wanted to know what you guys thought about this whole thing between Joe Rogan and Liver King. Do you pick any side? Do you think one side is right, the other is wrong? I know most of people are going to say Joe Rogan is right and the Liver King is wrong, but I really am interested in seeing what you really have to say and what your feelings are about this. And in a fight, who do you think would win between Joe Rogan and Liver King? Liver King is supposedly 2 inches taller. Nobody even knows his age, but he's around 9 to 10 years younger than Joe, from what we know. Well, peace out, guys. Thank you. And subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next video.